Front and Center. Front and Center. A focus on important and significant developments affecting the lives of Filipinos, not only in the Philippines, but also those living and working around the world. Join us in Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Welcome to Front and Center, where we focus on developments in the Philippines, legislation that provides policies and directions that strives to promote a better economy for the country, issues that concern the welfare and well-being of every Filipino. All of these and more will be Front and Center. And you can watch this program on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. That's Radyo Pilipinas World Service, and you can hear this broadcast through our audio streaming at Evox, PBS receiver app, and also on our shortwave broadcast on the following frequencies. That's 12.020 MHz, 15.640 MHz, and 17.665 MHz. And this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Let's begin Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Front and Center. Front and Center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
This year, the 2025 has been a year of services that matter and results that last, as the title for a 2025 Philippine Development Forum says. And as we approach in 2026, we will sit down with the architects of our nation's growth, and that is the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, or DepDev, to tell us the efforts of the administration to improve our economy and to make our lives better for this year. And in general, our economy remains stable while our inflation rate was maintained at the modest level despite global headwinds and some domestic challenges. But what more can be done or what more can be expected in 2026? So joining me now live via Zoom is the Undersecretary for Planning and or Policy and Planning Group of the Department of Economy, Planning and Development, Undersecretary Rosemary Edilion. Good morning, Yusek. Thank you so much for joining us in the program Front and Center on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
Yes, good morning, Jerome, and good morning to everyone.
Okay. So let's start here on the economic growth aspect, on the discussion here in the program. The distinguished DepDev Secretary Arsenio Balisacan described this year, 2025, as a year of respectable growth despite a third quarter slowdown to 4%. So how did the Philippines manage to outperform regional peers in Asia during the first half of the year, Yusek Edilion?
Yes, during the first half of the year, we did have some challenges as well, especially in the external front. As you know, there's still the geopolitical tensions happening, and then we had the Trump tariffs.
Yeah.
But in relation to that Trump tariffs, what we saw happen is well, actually, just as we expected, since many of the importers in the U.S. kind of were anticipating already that something will happen. Because as you know, the first wave of Trump tariffs was during the first week of April,
Yeah.
and then it was postponed. So it was given a transition period where everything was brought down to just 10%, and then it was increased again in sometime in June or July. So, but that means that during the first half, since the importers were expecting that already, they front loaded their orders, and that is why we saw an increase in our exports. Which is a good thing for our export sector, because like I said, a lot of the orders were front loaded, and then of course we also had the robust government spending during that time, during the first half of 2025, and then of course because of that boosted orders. It also boosted our manufacturing sector, all the other, even the services sector.
That's great. And if we say about the robust government spending and we have created jobs, Uh, what do you mean? Did we create a lot of jobs for this year, Yusek Edilion?
Actually, yes.
Mm-mm,
Um, Although I don't have the numbers here with me now.
mm-mm.
But anyway, the our employment, our labor sector remains very good
Yeah.
actually. Uh, our unemployment rate for full year is actually at 4.3%,
Mm-hmm.
which is even better than we have targeted. Our target was between 4.8 and
Point. Mm-hmm.
5.1%. But yes, so our actual performance with respect to employment is good. Although we
Mm-mm.
know that it's something that we can improve on,
Mm-hmm.
in particular the quality of the jobs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Although we are looking at the percentage of wage and employment or salaried workers,
Yeah.
meaning in the formal sector, which is still a good number. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's still better than expected, better than targeted, but we want to improve on this some more.
I see. And you mentioned about the Filipinos working in formal sectors. We don't have a problem with that. But the underemployment remains a challenge this year, Yusek Edilion. So, how is the government moving Filipinos from informal work to, as you mentioned, high paying jobs, particularly in tech sector and manufacturing sector?
Yeah. So, as you know, we already have the Trabaho para sa Bayan plan. So it was launched in May of
Mm,
last year. Oh,
mm-mm.
this year, sorry.
Yeah.
Still
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
2025.
yes.
So in May of this year, and we are actually rolling out the plan. And
Mm-mm.
what how we intend to improve on the underemployment statistics. Well, we know that underemployment happens because either it's a low pay or lower than
Mm-mm.
they were hoping for, or it's actually not matched to the education
Mm. Right.
that they have actually obtained. So you have probably let's say teachers, I
Yeah.
mean those who graduated from teaching,
Yes.
who are in
Who
the
are
retail
working
business.
others
So
in
there's that
yeah, yeah, that's
mismatch,
right.
and therefore there is a high level of job dissatisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have indicated in the Trabaho para sa Bayan plan, which we hope to roll out in full for
Mm-hmm.
this year and for the remaining plan period,
Mm-mm.
is to improve on our policy framework regarding flexible work arrangements.
Mm-hmm.
And then number two, uh, another let's say vulnerability that we have observed regarding the informal sector is that they lack the benefits that come
Mm-hmm.
with formal employment. So I'm talking about the Pag-ibig membership,
Ah. Mm-mm.
SSS,
Mm-mm.
and even in government, for if you are a job order or a contract of service employee,
Mm-hmm.
then you actually are not getting the GSIS benefits,
Mm-hmm.
the Pag-ibig, even the PhilHealth is voluntary.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we have proposed in the ED Council, which was approved by the government, and we will be expecting the executive order soon, is that the all government instrumentalities are now mandated to
Mm-mm.
facilitate the collection and the remittance of contributions. Of course, these are voluntary contributions,
Mm-hmm.
but for as long as the JO or the COS indicate that they want to be a member of or they want to contribute
Mm-hmm.
to their Pag-ibig and then to their SSS, then the government agency where they're working will facilitate that collection,
Mm-mm.
meaning salary deduction, and then the transmission to the remittance to the SSS and
Mm-hmm.
the PhilHealth and the
Ah.
Pag-ibig, as the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and there will also be a massive information campaign so that they realize, the benefits of being a member of this social protection mechanisms.
I see. And just a question, Yusek, regarding this on the questions of labor market situation here in the Philippines. So, um, uh, would there be series of trainings or skills or upskilling for our workers who has underemployment status, or they don't have the right skills, the necessary skills to be able to practice their profession or their job?
Yeah, that's right. We intend to roll out an enhanced active labor market program. So what this means is that when a job seeker goes to the peso and then says that I want to work, and then you have the peso that will be screening his vitae, his resume, and then if the peso sees that his skills are still lacking for the kind of in-demand jobs that their particular LGU has to offer, or probably a nearby LGU has to offer,
Mm-hmm.
then there will be that recommendation for him to take up skills training.
Mm-hmm.
And we will be rolling out a number of skills training programs with the TESDA. And of course, several state universities and colleges will
Mm-hmm.
also be offering what we call micro credentials,
Oh,
micro
what is
credentialing
this
programs. So
micro
these are short
credential?
courses, but very intensive in terms of the practical side, in terms of the application side, and you get a certificate afterwards.
That's great. And all Filipinos, regardless of whether they're working in private or public sector,
Mhm.
can get this credential.
That's right.
I
That's
see.
right.
Okay. All right. So that's a good thing that the government is actively working to address the issues on the labor market, particularly the underemployment. And as you mentioned, the government is continuously rolling out programs to address this, and to for Filipinos to have a better jobs, and that is aim or aim at their profession with or their courses in college. So that's a good thing that there's a program or series of programs spearheaded or being initiated by the government. So that's a good thing. So I'll go back to the economic growth here, Yusek Yadilion. Um, it says here that most analysts expect and hope that our economy will rebound in 2026. And as we know, Yusek Edilion, we possibly might, or we might not achieve our economic targets for this year. So, can you share us of what would be the strategy of DevDev to hit the target, or hopefully surpass the target for the next year?
Yes, for 2026, a major growth driver
Mm.
that we're seeing is the our chairship of the ASEAN. So
Mm-hmm.
this will surely bring in tourism, international tourists,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore we need to prepare to be a tourism friendly nation by that time. So I'm not just talking about our ports, our airports, but
Mm-hmm.
also about the hotels,
Mm-hmm.
all the accommodations, even the restaurants, even the retail stores around the venues
Mm-hmm.
of the ASEAN, because we know that I'm sure they will want to shop around, and
Mm-hmm.
therefore
Right.
we need to make sure that these ones will offer a good variety of products, hopefully Tatak Pinoy products. And then of course we also need to prepare for more halal certified products, because as you know,
Uh-huh.
in the ASEAN there are many of our neighbors are actually are Muslims, and therefore
Mm-mm.
they require halal certified foods,
Mm-hmm.
halal certified products. So this is something that we will be preparing for as well. And then of course there's also the boost in we are looking at a boost in housing, in our housing program, because of the
Mm-hmm.
rollout of more diversified product offerings
I
under
see.
the 4PH program.
Mm-hmm.
So this will actually boost construction, of course, boost tourism, sorry, boost manufacturing,
Yes, manufacturing.
construction-related
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing,
Mm-hmm.
and of course, boost also the services sector related to real estate. And
Mm-hmm.
so we are seeing many of these growth drivers, and for which it will really be a
Mm-hmm.
partnership between public and private. So
Mm-hmm.
the public sector will be the one hosting the ASEAN, preparing for all these events,
Yeah.
but we need the cooperation of the private sector to
Yes.
make it really, a tourist friendly country in 2026, and hopefully even going forward.
Okay, what's the contingency plan here, Yusek Edilion, since natural calamities are inevitable, and at the same time, there's rumors of political uncertainties here in the country, so that those two factors are impacting our economic growth. So, how is the DepDep addressing those?
Yeah. Well, first, with respect to the political the rumors, the political in nature,
Yes.
uh, what we intend to what we are proposing, and actually we have provided some initial drafts to the president, but there will be a more formal meeting during the first week of January. Is really to make good governance strategies,
Mm,
the overarching framework for all the program implementation.
mm,
So it will still be the same programs that will be implemented, because we know that these programs are aligned to the Philippine Development Plan and the 8-point
yeah.
agenda. But we
Mm-hmm.
think that we need to really just ensure that there's transparency and accountability,
Mm-hmm.
that these are relevant, there's efficiency in the government delivery of public services, and then active engagement with the stakeholders, with the public, and of course the timeliness of the response. So all these principles will be observed in all of by all the agencies in
Mm-hmm.
all of their program implementation. And hopefully that is because the only way to improve this perception, public perception, is to demonstrate results, to demonstrate our commitment, and of course the results that come with this commitment. And that is what we intend to do, to make sure that they well, first, that we are
Mm-hmm.
committed to these good governance principles, and that we communicate this properly.
So meaning to say, so this is a whole of government approach.
That's
So
right.
it's not just about the executive department will be involved in this good governance initiative, but also in the legislative side, and also the if possible, local government units.
That's right. That's right.
Mm-mm.
And by the way, pertaining to referring to your first question, which is on the plan B in case of natural
Yes,
calamities,
yes.
the same way we did it for our previous hosting of the APEC and our previous hosting of the ASEAN, there is always a contingency plan. So if let's say you have an event, and it's slated to happen in let's say venue A, and then you have a calamity happening, then there's already contingency venue B. Yeah,
Mm.
because as you know, it's a
Okay.
big country, and very rarely do we find typhoons that affect the entire
Yes.
country. So, but what that means is that even these alternative venues will also have to be prepared to be
Mm-mm.
hosting this ASEAN events. But we have done it before, and
Mm-mm.
so we just need to again have this plans ready, and even the contingency plans get the participation, cooperation of the private sector in the original venue, for instance, and then the alternative venues as well.
I see. But before we leave this a matter here, but agriculture sectors is one of the most affected sectors when it comes to natural calamities, and that may have a direct impact on our economic growth. So, how is the DepDep addressing that?
Yeah. Actually, with respect to agriculture, I'm looking at our programs here. With respect to agriculture, for this year, they had a good performance. And of course, we will know for sure the entire the full year numbers for agriculture and for the entire economy by the end of January. But we expect that it will still be a good year for agriculture. But in relation to, deep-seated problems in agriculture, mainly your declining farm size and then the fragmentation of land. So what that means is we need to really be more efficient in the use of the land, meaning we need really to promote the high yielding varieties so that for a piece of land you get more produce. And then of course, if the issue of farm profitability, then again we will be promoting the high value crops. And as you know, we have had a number of irrigation projects already started, and we think will be implemented full blast, I mean fully operational by 2026. And so again, that will be a big boost. So and then we also have been promoting for this year, we have been promoting the greenhouses, so that again it's more resilient than your open field farms. And so we expect them to be fully operational by 2026. It may not be addressing the entire food security issue,
Right.
but surely we will make much headway in 2026 than before.
Yeah, and the government is more prepared for next year when it comes to natural calamities. And you mentioned about these initiatives such as promotion of high value crops, implementing of irrigation programs in full blast, and also the greenhouse farming. So that addresses the food security, and at the same time that will impact the economic growth of the Philippines. Yusek Dillon.
Yes, and that's right. And before I forget, it's also we're also promoting smart agriculture.
Right.
So this is really, making use of technology, because as you know, we are already making use of what we call remote sensing, making use of satellite images in order to come up with specific and very location specific and location specific weather forecasts
I see.
that will really provide guidance to our farmers on when to plant, when to harvest, when to, when
Right.
to, regarding their farming decisions. And so, we want this smart agriculture, which is really our best initiative, I suppose, in order to make it resilient.
That's good, and the agriculture sector has will be supported in the next year, Yusek Edilion. But before we continue our discussion with regards to the improvements in our social economic sector here, Yusek Edilion, so we will have one short break here on the program Front and Center here on Radio Pilipinas World Service. We'll be right back.
Okay, okay, okay.
Mabilis ang trivia, dagdag talino. Heto na ang Dagling Kaalaman.
Madalas ka bang magpuyat at kulang sa tulog? Lumalabas sa pag-aaral na ang madalas sa pagpupuyat at laging kulang sa tulog ay nakakaapekto sa iyong kalusugan, partikular sa iyong puso at metabolismo. Maaari itong maging sanhi ng hypertension, mataas na kolesterol, stroke, heart attack, obesity, diabetes at iba pa. Kaya tandaan, sleep well, live well.
Kaunting kaalaman na malaking dagdag talino. Abangan muli ang susunod na Dagling Kaalaman.
Front and center. Front and center. Here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service.
All right, welcome back to Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Still with me, Jerome Toledo. And we now continue the discussion on the government's initiatives and programs for this year, particularly on the socio-economic matter here. With USEC Rosemary Adilion of the Department of Economy Planning and Development. Good morning again. Good day, Yusek Adilion. So let's resume our discussion now here on the inflation. So with the inflation dropping to a record 1.5% recently, what are the secrets on achieving this low inflation, and how will this translate into lower grocery prices? And second question here, is the DepDev optimistic of reaching this number next year?
Oh yes, we are optimistic about achieving the our inflation targets for next year. As before, it will be between 2 and 4%. That is actually the headline inflation that is being targeted for next year. And this is actually the inflation rate that is consistent with our targeted economic growth and consistent with our population growth. And so on how we how we have achieved it, as you know, there's that strategic what we call anticipatory measures that we have put in place, particularly with respect to agriculture, with respect to food products, because it constitutes a huge portion of the consumer basket, and especially the basket of the low income families, the bottom 30%. So we make sure that there's ample supply. At the same time that we were rolling out all this productivity enhancing measures being rolled out by the Department of Agriculture, we also make sure that we are able to supplement this if our forecast is that the domestic supply will not be sufficient to meet domestic demand, then we make sure that the imports come on time,
I see.
and not during the time that our farmers are swamped with lots of production, so that you also do not flood the markets. But at the same time, we are very cautious that we really want the food inflation to be kept in check, to be
Yeah.
kept low. And so for this coming year, we will maintain the same anticipatory strategies. So there is actually a TWG that was created under the Economic Development Group, and this is the Interagency Committee on Inflation and Market Outlook. So the DepDev chairs that TWG, and we come up with more forward forecasts for the food sector. And it's the DOF that is chairing the non-food sector.
Yeah.
So they are actually focusing again on coming up with more forward forecasts for the non-food sector. Again, identifying already what needs to be done in cases that we are anticipating some of this non-food. And just to say as well that with respect to the non-food inflation, a lot of the sources of non-food inflation is actually external in nature. So we're talking about oil, fuel, that is the biggest part of non-food inflation. And so what we have been rolling out, and actually it's been quite successful, especially during the latter part of 2025, and which we hope will continue in 2026. We're actually reducing our dependence on oil as a source of fuel. So with this, with already so many electric vehicles on the road, remember that we have actually given out fiscal and non-fiscal incentives. Non-fiscal incentives meaning you're
Right.
exempted from coding. So you
Right,
don't need
right.
to buy
Yeah,
another car, just
that's right.
one car. Just one
Okay.
car. You can make use of it every day of the week. Yeah,
Mm.
so that's the non-fiscal incentives, which is actually proving to be,
It
I
seems to
think,
be
even
working.
more appreciated
Okay.
by our motorists.
I see.
So these are things that we will be enhancing the implementation, and again we will be enhancing our forecasting methodologies so that we
Mm.
can come up with more timely and better forecast, especially for the agriculture sector.
I see. And you mentioned about the non-agricultural sector here, particularly the oil, which is one of the drivers of the non-agricultural inflation. So, and you mentioned about the fiscal incentives. So by incentivizing ownership of EV, so that we will have less dependence on oil, and this, and in turn will go the inflation for non-agricultural stuff will go down.
That's right.
Mm,
So
okay.
as you know, this e-vehicles will make use of electricity,
Mhm.
and alongside this uh, greater use of electric vehicles is our we have many more renewable energy sources,
Okay.
and many of them will be online this coming 2026. They
Mhm.
have started the establishment, but of course it takes time to really to establish this renewable energy. But many of them will be online this 2026, and therefore we have a better mix
Mhm.
of the power
Energy.
sector, the
Yeah.
energy sector.
Mhm.
And again, since we
Well.
now, in our transport sector,
Mhm.
at least that one will now be we will now be less dependent on
Okay.
imported fuel. What we
Mhm.
hope to happen as well is that many of our residences, individual homes for those who can afford, and probably even for government offices, if
Mm.
they can also install renewable energy sources. So let's
Mm.
say solar panels,
Okay.
so that again it we come up with a very good mix of our energy sources to reduce our dependence in oil, and even as we are actually transitioning to this more what we call green energy.
Mm. Okay, you mentioned about government offices or you are encouraging government offices to switch to renewable source of energy. So just a quick question on that. Do we have a program for that?
Well, actually, for instance, in our in DepDev, I'm talking about DepDev.
Uh-huh.
I think for it's still uh dependent on the agencies. For the entire government, is still
Mm-hmm.
up to the agencies to include it in their budget, to include in their budget this setting up of this renewable energy source, let's say solar panels. And it's easier to do it if you are actually constructing a new building, because if it's a new building, and especially if it's outside of NCR, then you can actually, you
Mm.
can make it wider
Yeah,
and
yeah.
probably a
That's
lower medium rise
mm.
building, and
Okay.
just make it wider so that you can have a larger roof space.
Yeah,
And
okay.
yes,
Okay,
so
that's mhm.
and then you can have installed this RE
All right.
sources.
That's good. That we will starting this program on the switching to renewable energy. But we don't have much time. I got a few minutes left here. But I would like to ask this question regarding the Luzon Economic Corridor. Yusek Edilion, I hope you can answer this in a brief time. For just a recall, what is the Luzon Economic Corridor and what does this mean for international investors and local job seekers? Since this economic corridor is being pitched by the president himself, President Marcos Jr.
That's right. We hope that it will be more tech related, technology related. So we are hoping for more semiconductors, more hopefully we can even have wafer fabrication in this. Again, it's still in the drawing board, but that is what we intend to have in this Luzon Economic Corridor. And then taking off from the models in other countries, there has to be higher education institutions, not necessarily an SUC. It can be a training facility like the TESDA type of training facilities that should be either in this corridor or near it, so that we have the necessary human capital to work in this establishments.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so meaning to say, so this is just still in initial phase, but it is ongoing a program or a project.
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay.
Yeah, and we hope to make good progress again, beginning 2026. But this will be for more for the medium term.
A medium term. So that's until the end of the administration, Yusek
That's
Edilion.
right. That's right. That's right.
Okay. Okay. So I will get your final message to our Filipinos working and living overseas who are watching our economy from afar and wondering if 2026 is the year that they can finally consider coming home for good. So, what is your message for them?
Oh yes, actually for 2026 we are also launching what we call the Diaspora for Innovation. So we are looking
Okay.
to collaborate with many of our kababayans abroad, not just the overseas Filipino workers, but even those who have already migrated abroad, just to get them engaged with the development in the Philippines. We know that they have actually achieved many more in other. They have obtained
Skills.
higher skills
Yeah.
probably, and they have now a wider network, at least in terms of expertise and probably also in terms of market. And so we will be engaging with them through the Philippine Innovation Act, where, like I said, we're now laying down that policy framework where they can now be engaged. They can partner with our local startups, and there will now be this like a startup visa, a startup investor visa. So these are things that that will be presented to the president this coming year.
By next year. Okay, that's
By
great.
next year, yes.
All right. Okay, so with that, thank you so much for that for the wonderful discussion regarding the improvements and initiatives of the government for this year and the year coming here in the Philippines. Thank you, Undersecretary Rosemary Edilion, the Undersecretary for Policy and Planning of the Department of Economy, Planning and Development.
Yes, thank you very much, and looking forward to a very prosperous new year for us all.
Okay. And Happy New Year to Yusek Edilion.
Yes.
All right, and with that, we now conclude this edition of Front and Center here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Thank you so much for to our technical team, headed now by Mr. Leo Magpayo. Also on our Wirecast, we have Justine Osias. And this is your host, Jerome Toledo. Until next time, mabuhay.
You have just heard and watched Front and Center. Front and Center. Join us again for another edition here on Radyo Pilipinas World Service. Front and Center.